Looking for a Chevy car, truck, or SUV? Go see my friends at Apple Chevy in Tinley Park. With over 500 new and used vehicles in stock, they have what you're looking for and at the lowest price possible. Go to applechevy.com. The other story that I think is particularly interesting today, this is the breaking news out of Missouri. It broke this morning, actually, out of Missouri, where the University of Missouri president has stepped down in the aftermath of all of this controversy and really a lot of sound and fury about racism on the University of Missouri campus, and actually not only at Columbia but at the other three extension campuses of the University of Missouri. And people have been very concerned and calling for the president's ouster. But I'm slightly confused by this. Geraldo Rivera, you know him, you love him from the Fox News channel and his many years, Geraldo, of covering the world. And does ousting the president at the University of Missouri make a ton of sense here?
What's up? I'm sorry I may have been late calling. I was online getting my prescription filled now that you have the...
I see what you did there. I see what he did there.
Migraines? Do you have migraines?
My peanut butter.
There you go.
This is terrible what happened in Columbia. I just think the mob has spoken. I don't think the president had anything to do with racism. He became the scapegoat. It's all about Ferguson. It's not about, it's not about the MIZZOU. It's not about the University of Missouri. It's about the power of the football team to exercise veto over the administration. I think it's terrible.
Well, think about that for a second, because, and our own Connor McKnight, our sports guys here on this, they were going to play BYU this weekend, and they would have lost out on $1 million that the university would have made just for appearing in that football game. Isn't that right?
Yeah, the money's there. I think it's worth noting, too, that the faculty was going to start a 2-day walkout starting this morning, too. So the football program had something to do with it, Rode, no doubt.
Yeah. And Geraldo, is your thought that it seems to me that there was one incident directly related to the president, and that was on homecoming weekend during the parade. A bunch of students came out and they tried to stop his car. They got in front of his car. They demanded a meeting in the middle of the homecoming parade with him. One of the students is said to have been bumped by the car as it was moving. The president did not get out of the car. And then it seems like this thing escalated from that point to make this guy, the president of the university, the centerpiece of this, when, as you're pointing out, it is about incidents of racism, which have been going on for decades at the University of Missouri, and these all seem to be sort of one-off incidents as opposed to some sort of orchestrated campaign of hatred at the university. And then, and again, a lot of the Black Lives Matter movement, which of course started just about 100 miles to the east in Ferguson, Missouri.
I think that the incident you described, I didn't see it, but if I was driving the car and a bunch of students were behaving like thugs and stopping my vehicle and throwing themselves on the vehicle, I might have got out and punched somebody. It reminds me a lot of the Bernie Sanders incident where he was making a speech and they snatched the microphone from him. I think Black Lives Matter has adopted tactics that are absolutely counterproductive. I think that it has nothing to do with civil rights. This has to do with the exercise of power. And to show that, can you imagine that the president of the University of Missouri becomes the scapegoat because of the incident you described? Now he's an institutional racist. Now he bears the burden of all the racism that's ever happened in the state of Missouri. I think this is mob rule, man. This is not about racism. This is about who is the power in the university. And when you start recklessly throwing out charges like racism, I'm mad at the president for wimping out and withdrawing in the way he did. If his record is as clean of the charges that are being thrown around here as it seems, I think that this is an example of everything that is wrong with this Black Lives Matter movement. They have a beef. If they have a beef, let's say they have a beef about the black and blue thing, about cops killing young black people, then how come nobody raised a voice in the Black Lives Matter movement when that 9-year-old boy was lured into the alley in Chicago last week by a rival gang and then murdered? Where was the outcry when that 9-year-old boy was murdered? That's where there should be some focus.
Geraldo, back to the president, though. I mean, this isn't the only incident. Wasn't just the parade incident. There were other incidences that on campus. There was the feces drawing that was, the Confederate flag were flying during the protests. They've had several incidences that have been cited, and now you've got, just go look on Twitter right now, and you see lots of black students coming out and talking about a lot of incidences of problems with racism on that campus, throwing cotton balls outside a black fraternity. A girl talked about how she got bottle thrown at her for dating a white man when she was black. There are all kinds of incidents that are now coming out that this president had to be aware of. And I think at the top, you're responsible for what's happening on your campus and setting the tone for your campus and reacting in a responsible way.
I absolutely disagree with your characterization of what is happening at the University of Missouri. If those things had happened, then there are specific perpetrators who have violated federal and state law, civil rights laws. Any charge could have been specifically brought against a specific perpetrator, and where was that action? Now, in retrospect, everything becomes Tim Wolf's fault. I reject that characterization. This is the kind of sloppy, unfettered venting that happens in a way that doesn't do any credit. Now what? Where do we stand now? The singing "We Shall Overcome"? We shall overcome what? Civility? I just think that this is not.
Well, when they threw the cotton balls, they actually charged them with littering. That's what they charged them with. So that's not sloppy. That's what happened.
A specific perpetrator, and they are charged. How is this? How does this? What happens to the next president if they don't like the next president or the one after that? What happened to the power of the student council? What happened to the power of the checks and balances that the university has set up over years? There is a legacy in all of these border and southern states of racism that has to be dealt with. But when students begin acting out and depriving other students of access to their classrooms and so forth, I don't think that does anybody any good.
You brought up something, Geraldo, that I want to go back to too, which is an important one. That there has been a lot of discussion. As a matter of fact, there's a very interesting article in today's Chicago Sun-Times about this, about why there is such a hue and cry. Especially if we're gonna talk about Black Lives Matter. Now there's Police Lives Matter. There's All Lives Matter. It
How
is
about that 9-year-old boy's life matter?
Well, that's the point. Is that there is an article today about how this we're cherry picking the conversations. We are cherry picking the conversations based on political agenda. We are not honestly looking at the whole picture here and saying, listen, the incredible amount of violence in this society, whether it is gun violence or knife violence or whatever it is, and guns are a big part of this, and they're particularly deadly in Chicago. But it is not but it is the person who pulls the trigger, right? Ultimately, who has to take responsibility for this. And when you do have thousands upon thousands of kids, I think there was a number that was absolutely astounding. I believe since 2011 in Chicago, 8,000 kids have been shot in the city of Chicago. 8,000 under the age of 25. Now,
so
think about
the rage? That's my point.
Right.
Where is the rage? Why don't these kids direct their rage at something that is meaningful, that something can actually save lives? That's my frustration.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think that's the thing is that we're cherry picking this based on somebody must be out to get somebody, as opposed to looking at a much larger problem of random and reckless violence over whether it's gang affiliation or that guy looked funny at me or whatever it happens to be. And now you see, I mean, the thing is, and I know you spent a lot of time here, Geraldo, and you understand Chicago. I think from better than most of the national press understand Chicago.
Well, I had a 14-year relationship with Chicago.
Right. So, I mean, I think that's when you stop and you think about what actually transpires here, and you see the ultimate, what has over the weekend, I mean, this is a crazy thing. You've got the mother, allegations that the mother of this 9-year-old spent her GoFundMe page money that was intended to help her with burial expenses for her child. The allegation is
the new car. I heard that.
Yeah, she bought a new car. The dad is selling T-shirts at $35 a copy with pictures of the child on it. It becomes there's the gang legacy of the people around this kid are so profound. I mean, they go to the very the very heart, the very centerpiece of the creators of some of those violent gangs in the history of America. And so again, people don't want to stop and talk about that, or they don't want to acknowledge that is a major thing. People want to blame other boogeymen for it. And this is.
I don't know if you remember, but years ago, you probably weren't even on the radio yet. But Jim Brown and I, the football great, and I went to Cabrini Green. And when Cabrini Green existed. And we talked about gang violence, and we talked about it. And now I'm talking about you going back, it could be 25 years or more from what I'm describing, a 2020 piece I did back in the day. And I
think you did that in the aftermath of Jane Byrne moving in, right? In the aftermath of Jane Byrne moving into Cabrini Green.
Right, it was.
Yeah.
It was that. It was.
Yeah.
Good memory. So, why not direct? There you got Bloods, you got Crips, you got Chirac, you got Spike Lee's movie coming out and the impact that's going to have on the city and its image and all the rest of it. This is where it seems to me energy in a historic way. If there was a historic rising up and saying, basta, no more of this. We're not going to tolerate this anymore. This is the movement, and you have kids singing "We Shall Overcome" and linking arms and having rallies. That, you know why that's not done? Because that's the heavy lifting. So much easier to single out a liberal president, a wimpy president of a state university who gets pressure from the cabal of the tenured professors and the radical students. It's so much easier. I remember back in the 60s, whenever there was a liberal mayor or a liberal this or that, I knew that we could accomplish whatever we wanted. We could make any demand we wanted, that they would fold. And this is a pathetic example. And I think this is an embarrassment for Missouri.
All right. Geraldo Rivera. Thank you, Geraldo. It's always a pleasure, sir.
Anytime, mate. Anytime.
All right. We'll talk to you soon. All right. Coming up, we've got, listen to this. We are live.